Hello and welcome to Tabletop for One. Today I am doing a solo playthrough of Tanares Adventures, and this is the first scenario, the tutorial scenario. So I will be able to show you a variety of things on how to do the combat, how to use skills, how to use your heroic actions and special abilities, armor, weapons, how the turn order system works, and different combo actions you can play during the game. Now, you are going to choose 4 characters to play. There is rules for what is called a comrade setup so that it's easier for solo play, but I prefer to play with all 4 characters and all their skill pads. So for each character, you're going to have 6 different cards. You'll have 2 with the yellow border and 4 with the silver border. And then you're going to have a skill pad which has for each class. So I have a brute, I also have a tank, a controller, and a healer. And you're going to choose 4 skills to place your skill tokens on for this adventure. And so I have picked these skills for the brute and different ones for each of the other characters. And then of course you get your character card. Here's the brute's card here. And the brute has passive abilities or triggered abilities, sorry. The stats at the bottom refer to how they interact with people in the city phase. So you'll ignore these for the quest. All right. So I've set up the board here with all the terrain, the walls, the doors, and this orb here. And there's 3 statues here. And the heroes on the entry space, it's the space with the stairs behind it. And the way this scenario works is we start in this room here. This orb is protecting this statue. And these 3 statues are inhibiting your abilities. So as of right now, the only abilities you have access to are your basic movement and attack. You don't have access to your cards yet, or your skills, or your armor or weapons. So this particular statue here is preventing use of your abilities, your card abilities. This one over here is preventing use of your mana and skills. And this last one is preventing use of your armor and weapons. So this tutorial scenario is designed to introduce you to key concepts as you go. And so what it's teaching you here in this first room is how to move and use a basic attack. So when it comes to the hero's turn, any hero can go. You just choose the turn order. You're going to use these black cubes here to signify using a hero in its turn. So after its turn, you're going to put one of those black cubes on the hero card, and that's going to end the turn for that hero. At the end of a round, you'll remove all the black cubes, and we will start a new round. So we're going to start off with the tank here. He's got a basic movement of 6. And so I'm going to move 1 here. And moving across the swamp here takes actually 2 movement points because I went diagonally across the corner of the swamp. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. And so now I'm going to go ahead and attack the orb. The orb hit points are right here, signifying 25 hit points. And it has a defense of 3, so I have to roll 3 or better. So we're going to go ahead and roll that here. And I roll a 6. So I'm going to go ahead and do damage to it. And the tank does 6 damage for its basic attack, bringing the orb down to 19. And now we're going to move on to the brute. The brute can move 6 as well. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're going to go ahead and attack. The Brute's basic attack does 8 damage. And we roll a 3. So we just barely hit it, bringing it down to 11. Alright. The ranged characters here, the controller and the healer, are both ranged with their basic attacks. That is signified by a bow on the card here. So up at the very top here, it shows the basic attack amount. And there's a little icon here that shows a bow. So that signifies that it's a ranged attack. So it has to be within 8 spaces. And you have to have line of sight. Line of sight is an imaginary line drawn from one corner of your square to one corner of your target square that's not inhibited by walls or doors or any other kind of blockade. The swamp, your heroes, other enemies, traps like the spikes here do not inhibit line of sight. So we do have line of sight here. And one of the things you can do with a ranged character is you can decide to focus. And what that means is you forego your movement action in order to focus your attack. And that makes your target exposed. This also works for healing abilities when you're rolling for healing abilities, so keep that in mind. And the rules is that you don't move, so you cancel out your movement attack, and you don't have enemies within 3 spaces of you. Of course, there's no enemies here within the 3 spaces of either of these two characters. A target exposed, meaning it takes 3 less on the roll to hit it. So with a defense of 3, it really doesn't matter that I roll, other than I don't want a natural miss, which is a 1. So we're going to roll there. We get an 8. And the succubus is going to go ahead and do 7 damage, bring it down to 4. And then we're going to roll with the healer here. And we get a 15. And that's going to kill off the orb. So the orb is now removed. And if you read the book on what happens with this event, this statue gets removed from the board. This door opens up. All your heroes are teleported to this square here. If you had a companion from one of the commander classes, you would put that companion within 2 spaces of your commander. But we don't have that here, just keep that in mind. And now I'm going to go ahead and spawn all the enemies. Okay, now that we've spawned the enemies here, we have 3 Reapers here. And these Reapers are going to be attacking our heroes here shortly. Now, if you notice here, each of these Reapers here, and it'll show in the book, they're color-coded. Alright? So that's referring to the enemy's class. So the Reapers here come with 3 different cards to signify their class and by color. So the green one's a Guardian, the blue one is a Mystic, and the red one is Violent. This also corresponds to their targeting. So when they're choosing a target, as in one of the heroes to attack, the green one's going to always go for the one that has the most mana. The blue one's going to always go for the one that's reachable the furthest away. And the red one's always going to go for the one with the highest hit points. Alright? They also have different stats here. So we have 40 hit points for the Guardian, 35 for the Mystic, and 35 for the Violent one. Their attacks are different too. The Guardian empowers his allies, giving them extra strength. The Mystic does an area attack after it hits its target. And the Violent one just hits harder than the rest. And here we go. So we're back to it being our turn. Alright? And so now we have access to our cards. So once again, you're going to choose one of these attacks, or you can use a basic attack if you wanted to. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to look at the controller, because I'm in a position right now where the controller can target both of these here and can use focus because neither of them are within 3 spaces of the controller. And the controller does have line of sight with this one here if you trace that back corner there to the back corner up here. And so she can hit both of those. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at Mind Strike. All right, so Mind Strike here says that you attack a target within 8 squares, actually 2 enemies, deal 6 damage per hit plus an effect, which is move 1 to all enemies hit. All right. When you use a card, after you're done, you're going to flip it over. You're not going to have access to, when you use a silver card, you're not going to have access to it until you've used all your silver cards, and then they'll flip back over. So, but if you use a gold card, those are one-offs. You only get access to those once a quest. So we're going to go ahead and target these here. And both of them have a defense of 5. So the succubus is going to target the green one first. All right. So defense of 5. We need, and she's focused. So we just need to hit a 2 or better. And we do an 11. So it's going to deal 6 damage, bringing him down to 34. And we're going to roll on this one here. 17, also dealing 6 damage, and bringing that one down to 29. Now the effect of the card happens, and the effect is I get to move all enemies hit 1 space. So I'm going to go ahead and move that Reaper into the spikes, causing it 4 damage. Next, I'm going to move this one here. All right? And so that is the end of the succubus's turn, the controller's turn. Now what happens here is when you attack an enemy, it provokes the enemy to retaliate. And so it immediately moves the enemy, the first enemy that you target, as the next turn that's going to happen. Normally you go heroes first, then all the enemies. But in this case, since I targeted the green one first, that Reaper is now going to get to attack. And so the Reaper targets the character with the most mana. In this situation, none of the characters have any mana yet because this statue is blocking the gain and use of mana. And so the Reaper is going to then target the closest one with the most hit points here, being the tank. All right. His range is 1 space away. So he's going to move 1, 2, 3, 4. Now he's going to take 4 damage for having walked on that space of the spikes. And according to the rules, the first thing he's going to do is take the shortest path to his target, which is the tank here. And then next is going to be the safest path. But in this case, the shortest path is both unsafe and short. So he's going to go through the spikes, and he's going to take 4 damage for doing so. You can only take damage from obstacles and traps once per turn. Now, he took 4 damage in the previous turn. He's taking 4 damage now. And if I'm wrong on that rule, please correct me in the comments. But that's how I read the rule book. All right. So now he's going to go ahead and attack my tank. My tank has a defense of 8. The Reaper is using his Enraging Scythe. So he's going to aim for 14 damage plus an effect. And his effect grants the nearest, or grants another enemy with highest hit points within range to gain Empowerment 3. All right. Now, anytime an effect triggers, it's always within 8 spaces of the person who's administering the effect. And so unless of course it says otherwise, but I'm going to show you here on the player board right here. It reminds you range equals 8. Unless stated otherwise, the targets of effects need to be in vision and of 8 spaces of view, including skills, attacks, items, passive powers. So just keep that in mind. Unless a skill or ability says otherwise, it's 8 spaces away. This villain here is going to empower one of the other villains 8 spaces away if he hits. In this case, the only one that can be targeted is the red one here. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and roll. Again, my tank has 8 defense. And he rolls a 13. So he's going to do 14 damage to my tank, bringing him down to 56. And then he's going to empower the Red Reaper. So now it goes back to one of my hero's turns. Remember that you're going to want to place that black exhaustion cube on the Reaper card so you remember that that Reaper has had a turn this round. Okay, so now is I want to attack with the Brutes, I think. So we're going to look at the Brutes cards here, and I think we're just going to do Perfect Blow. So Perfect Blow here says it's within 2 squares, and that's a melee attack within 2 squares. It gets +3 to attack roll and does 11 damage. Alright. We're going to go ahead and roll for that here. Once again, that Reaper has 5 defense. And we get a 9. That's more than enough, even with the extra to the roll. So now he's going to take 11 damage, bringing him down to 15. Okay, so now we're going to attack with the tank. And so the tank is going to use Daring Taunt. So Daring Taunt says that I can attack an enemy up to 2 spaces away, melee attack, +3 to the attack roll, 9 damage, and in effect I get to pull for another enemy. Okay? We'll go over that as it happens here. Let's go ahead and roll to see if I actually hit. Aiming for a 2 or better because I got that plus to the attack roll. And that's a 4. So we definitely hit. And notice we haven't touched these 2 guys or target them as the primary target of an attack. So they haven't been provoked. So they're just sitting there for now. Alright, so now I've attacked him again with the +3 to my roll. I hit. He's taking 9, going down to 6. So he's almost dead. And then I get to taunt another enemy. Again, this is within 8 spaces, right? And line of sight. So I'm going to taunt this one, and it's going to pull him towards me. And so what happens here is I'm going to pull him the shortest path here. Now, I could just pull him 1 space. Or I could pull him all the way. Okay? Yeah, I'm going to pull him, I think, right here. Just onto that space. So he's going to take 4 damage there. And we'll drop his health down to 25. Okay. Now, once again, this does not trigger a provoke because he is not the target of the attack. The green one was. So now, the last character I have available is the healer. And so I definitely want to heal my heroes. I also kind of want to get rid of that green enemy, but he's gone for the round. Actually, I think I'm going to do is this one. It's called Pew Pew. Alright, so this one here says forego your passive power, get +3 to the attack roll. It's going to do 7 damage and then deal 6 damage to an enemy. and I am hastened. Okay. Now, hastened means that I can move away from an enemy without inciting a reaction. But we're not in that scenario. I'll go over reaction attacks when they happen. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and target this one with my healer. Again, there's line of sight there. So I'm going to roll. I get +3 to the attack roll because I'm not using my passive power. And I get a 10. Okay, so that's going to do 7 damage to the red one, bringing him down to 18. Then I'm able to deal 6 damage to an enemy, which I'm going to target the green one, which he only had 6 health left. He is now gone. All right. And then I gain hastened. Now, when you gain an ability with your character, you can use some of the tokens given, or you can use your character token to remind you that you have that ability. And so I'm going to place this on my character card, and she now has that ability. So now we have used all of our characters, but this one was provoked to attack. So he's going to target the character with the highest hit point, which is going to be the brute, and he's going to move towards him. So here's where the shortest distance comes into play and the safest route. So right now, if he moves diagonally into this spot here, he will take 4 damage by moving diagonally through a spike spot. Or if he moves here, here, then here, he'll be fine. Either way, it's the same distance, so then the rule of being the safest route is going to come into play. So he's going to go 1, 2, 3. All right, so now he's going to attack the brute. The brute has 6 defense, and we'll see how it goes. He rolls a 4. So what happens here is when a character rolls a 4, or rolls less than the defense of a hero, he does what is a miss here and does residual damage. All right, so it says 8 residual damage here. He's going to do that. Now, if you remember, that Reaper had an empowered token from the Green Reaper. Now, empowered tokens do not affect residual damage. However, since it was considered for an attack, as the rules state, even if it doesn't impact the attack, it is removed. So he loses that empowered token, and he does the 8 residual damage here, bringing the brute down to 57. Okay, now we go on to the last villain here, and he has not been provoked. So what happens here is if he can attack, and if he hits, he's going to do an extra 5 damage. It's an automatic critical hit. But in this case here, he cannot reach his target, which is the furthest one away, which is going to be one of these two here. But he's going to do an advanced movement. And what that happens is he gets 10 movement points at the cost of 3 hit points. So the increase in movement is what is called a dark surge, and it only happens when the enemy cannot reach anybody to attack. And so since he cannot reach anybody, he's going to move 10 hit points. Move 10 spaces. I reduced his hit points by 3. And we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Again, it's going to be the safest path possible. Still the same amount of distance. And so now he is going to end his turn there. And so now that everybody has been used and they all have fatigue tokens on them, you're going to remove all those fatigue tokens and you're going to start a new round. And once again, it starts with the heroes. Okay, so now I'm going to show you something here in regards to reaction attacks. Anytime you are next to an enemy and you decide to move, use your move action, just the move action, okay? And you move away from the enemy or even around it, just using the move action will cause that enemy to do a reaction attack against you. And so the reaction stat is on the bottom here. So 8 damage from the red one there. It's 8 damage from all 3 of them, actually. And your characters also have a reaction stat, which these 4 characters, it's the same as their basic attack stat. So if I decided to move this brute around for whatever reason, let's say I wanted to attack the mystic, and I wanted to move over there and attack, then I would incite a reaction attack from the red reaper. However, there are some times when you get to move outside of a move action. There are skills, and then there are certain abilities, like this one here. Okay? So this one states that it's called the Shipwreck Blow. 1 square away I attack an enemy, and I move 3 as a benefit. So when you execute these things, you're going to choose the attack, declare the target of the attack, but I'm going to move 3 first before I even roll. And this does not cite a reaction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, oops. I'm going to go 1, 2, right behind the Reaper. Okay? And so that doesn't incite a reaction attack, and I'm going to go ahead and roll against the Reaper, and I'm looking to do 10 damage to him. There is an effect that I get to do another 6 damage to another enemy within 2 spaces of me, but he's too far away. So we're going to roll here. I hit him, and that's going to do 10 damage. So that brings him down to 8. And now he is going to go next. So he's going to target the one with the most hit points, which is the succubus or the healer. We're going to choose between the two having the same amount of hit points. He's going to target the healer. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because I opened up this spot in order to cause him to do a reaction attack. Now, the way this works here is that he's going to move to attack the healer. So he's going to move 1 space, and that movement is going to cause a reaction attack. Not from both of these. You can only incite 1 reaction attack. And since they were both next to him and tied, I get to choose which one. And I'm going to choose the brute, which is going to cause 8 damage and actually kill the Reaper. So there you have it. That was a nice little combo move there, bringing that Reaper down on a reaction attack. So now we move on to the next character that we want to use. And I want to keep in mind that this Reaper wants to attack the furthest character within range. Okay? And he can hit 2 spaces away, so he's going to target one of these 2 no matter what. But what's nice is I've also positioned my brute there to hit him along the way. So what I want to do is I want to provoke him with probably the succubus. Alright, so we're going to choose to use blood petals. Alright, so blood petals here says I target an enemy in range, 8 squares, do 11 damage, then I move the target 1 space, and if I rolled an even number, he gets bleeding. Alright, that sounds cool. So let's go ahead and try it out. So we're going to roll. We need to get, and we're focused here. Now notice there are no enemies around here, and I'm going to forego my move action on the succubus. So she's going to get, or this target is now exposed to her, and so his defense is 3 lower. So she just needs a 2 or better. Ha 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 ha! Check that out. That's a 2. And we go ahead and hit. So now we do 11 damage, bringing him down to 21. That allows us to move him 1 into the spikes, dealing 4 more damage. And on top of that, it was an even number, and so that gives us the ability to cause bleed 2 to the Reaper. Now, of course, bleed is going to cause 2 damage for each square he enters by spending movement points. Now that it's his turn because he's been provoked, he's going to move to his target. He's going to move 1, 2, 3, 4. And that'll put him within reach, but he will also take residual damage. So reaction damage. So he's going to take 8 residual damage from the bleed, and then 8 damage from the brute, bringing him down to 1 hit point remaining. All right. So now he's going to go ahead and attack. And he's going to attack the healer. The healer has 7 defense. And let's see what happens. He rolls a 19. All right. So even though he's on the brink of death, he does a whole bunch of death and destruction. Now with the Mystic Reaper here, he's going to hit for 15. So we bring the healer down to 45. And then he does a blast, which is 6 damage to any of the heroes in one space around the healer. So each of these heroes is going to take 6 damage. So the controller goes down to 54. The tank goes down to 50. All right. And so with that, we are going to move on to just doing a basic attack with the tank to try and kill off the Reaper. That's a 15 there, and that is going to kill off the Reaper and end this part of the scenario. So at this point, this statue here is gone. And now we are going to be teleported to this space here. And this door is going to open up. And the enemies are going to be revealed. All right. Now we are encountering a berserker here. A violent berserker, and a guardian warrior. Here are the stats we're looking at here. The warrior has 70 health, 7 defense, 5 movement, and 8 reaction attack. His attack allows him to heal another villain, or himself. And of course, he's going to attack the heroes with the most mana. This berserker here has 50 health, 6 defense, 5 movement, and 8 reaction. He does a huge amount of damage and causes a target to be pushed. And then he's going to target the highest hit points. These also have extra abilities here down at the bottom. They have passive abilities here. So when no other hero is in one space of the target, he deals 7 extra damage. The Guardian has, if this villain moves 2 or less and doesn't sidestep, run to another hero and deal 5 damage to it. Okay. So here we are. Now, with the removal of that statue, we now have access to all our skills. And it instructs us to give 3 mana cubes to each of our heroes. And so now we can access the skills. And the way the skills work, if you see here, at the bottom here, it shows that on an ally's turn, you can use these skills. On a villain's turn, you can use these skills. So basically it allows for this kind of dynamic combat situation where one character is going, but another character is aiding or moving things on the board or causing damage or even healing at the same time. you spend mana to use it. So you'll spend 1 mana, flip it over, and leave this in the skill slot. If you want to use that skill again, it'll cost an extra mana. When you have used all your skills or flipped all the tokens, or charged them, whenever it says to charge a skill token, it means to flip it over to that cube side of it. When you used all 4 of them, you get to incite what is called a total charge here. And so with the Brute, the total charge says uncharge your 4 tokens, and a villain takes 9 damage. Again, that's in range 8 and line of sight. And so a lot of times you're wanting to use these skill tokens almost every turn. The more you use them, the more times you get to use the total charge ability. And the way you earn mana tokens is by killing an enemy or by missing. So if you miss, you gain a mana. So you deal residual attack and you gain a mana. Okay? If you kill an enemy, then every of your heroes gains 1 mana. So we're going to be using mana, gaining mana, and dealing some extra combos here. All right. So we're going to start off again. And I think, actually, you know what? I'm going to use the Succubus. Okay? We're going to target. And let's do Fatal Kiss. Fatal Kiss says that you deal 9 damage, and then another enemy takes damage equal to half your natural roll. Again, they have to be within range and line of sight. So, I'm going to target the red one there. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to use an ability on my tank during the Succubus turn. I'm going to use an ability from the tank called Reposition. And what it does is it allows me to spend a mana token. And then I get to move one of these villains 2 spaces. And I get to move my tank 2 spaces. So I'm going to move my tank 2 spaces here. And I'm going to move this villain 2 spaces here. And so I'll explain to you the reason for that in just a moment. But now we're going to go ahead and do the roll. Again, I'm looking to do 9 damage and then half my roll. So we're going to target the red one because I want to cause him to be provoked. All right. So we roll there. Oh no! We get a 2. That's a miss. Now, of course, we gain a mana for the controller. And we deal residual damage. So we're going to deal 5 residual damage to the Berserker. And he's been incited. So I don't deal any damage to the green one because the miss prevents the effects of the hit. And so now it's the red one's turn. The Berserker is going to go. So now the Berserker, of course, targets the one with the highest amount of hit points. And right now that is the Brute. And so he's going to move within range and he's going to go 1, 2. And that's going to cause the tank to do a reaction attack against him, bringing him down 6 hit points from 45 to 39. And now he's going to roll against the Brute. Now, on the villain's turn, I am able to use some of my other curses. So before the roll, I can use the controller's ability, Fog. And I will do that, and that causes the villain to be cursed. So now he's got to roll twice, and whatever the lowest roll is the one that counts. Furthermore, I am going to roll, or use the tank's ability, Endurance, which grants my Brute a shield. And so he's going to be shielded by 3. And that is going to reduce the damage he's going to take. So even if he takes residual damage, this is the only time that an effect affects residual damage, it'll reduce that damage by 3. So we're going to go ahead and roll. The Berserker is looking for an 8, but he's cursed. So let's see what happens. That's a 1. It doesn't even matter to roll a second time. That is a straight up miss. And now So he just completely misses. There's no residual damage. That is done. All right. So with that being the case, it is now one of my other characters' turns. Okay? So we've used the controller. So let's take a look at using the brutes. Now, interestingly here, in this situation, this is a situation where the enemy is now mobbed. What that means is that if you have two allies that are adjacent to an enemy but not adjacent to each other, you have now mobbed an enemy. And so an enemy mobbed by either of the two heroes in the mob is exposed, meaning, of course, that he has -3 defense. So as of right now, he only has 3 defense if I attack with the tank or the brute. And so I think we're going to do that. We're going to focus fire on him. I'm going to use a simple ability with the brute, savage weapon. And I'm going to go ahead and use the ability harm from controller. It's one of her skills, spending that mana. And what that does is I pay 2 hit points on the controller. And now I give this villain vulnerable 6, meaning he's going to take 6 more damage from an attack. So we are rolling now. Again, we just need to roll a 3 or better. That's a 14 there. And so now the villain is hit for the 13 damage on the savage weapon, plus 6 from the vulnerability, and that's going to bring him down to 20. All right, we took a nice big hit there. And so, again, he is exhausted, so he does not retaliate at this time. So now, I am looking at the possibility of doing a special attack. And so I have this special attack here with the healer. Special attack says that I can do 22 damage to the enemy. I can't use focus here because he's within 3 spaces of me, but we are going to go ahead and roll for that. He's not exposed to the healer because the healer is not part of the mob, and she is going to attack. That's a 7. That hits. 22 damage. He is down. All right. That means everybody regains 1 mana. Okay. So now we're doing good. So now I've exhausted 3 of my characters, and I have the tank left to use. And just so you know, the healer has an ability, passive ability, that when I attack, an ally is within 3 spaces of me on the first hit of my turn, I deal an extra 5 damage. So I overkilled that character, dealing 27 damage total. Okay, so now I want to bring the warrior into play. The warrior targets the character with the most mana in range. And so I want to attack him, provoke him, and cause him to move towards, likely, the brute. And of course, if I can position myself, I will get a reaction attack. And so I'm going to go ahead and move my tank, and we're going to go 1, 2, 3. And so I'm going to use retaliation attack here. And retaliation attack says that I do 9 damage, and I choose an enemy, and the next time it resolves an attack, I run to it and make a basic attack against it. So we're going to roll against the warrior. He has 7 defense. I do 12. That's going to cause 9 damage, bringing him down to 61. Okay. So now he is provoked. He's going to go ahead and attack. He's going to move towards the brute because the brute has the most hit points, or the most mana, sorry. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That causes a reaction attack against him, and he's going to lose 6 hit points there, bringing him down to 55. He's going to attack the brute, and I'm going to use some skills. So the brute is going to do rage, which costs a mana and does 3 damage to the enemy, bringing him down to 52. And the healer is going to use restoration, which heals a character 3. So it's going to heal the brute 3 before he gets hit. And now we're going to go ahead and roll. Okay, the brute has 6 defense. It's an 8. The warrior hits for 10, bringing the brute down to 50, and it's going to heal the warrior 6. Okay, and so now we are at the beginning of a new round. And so with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and use the brute to attack. Actually, I'm going to use the controller to attack. She does mystery box here. It does 18 damage plus an effect, and the effect is if the roll is odd, heal 18. If it is even, deal 18 damage to another enemy, or deal 4 damage to all enemies and move them 3. So we're going to go ahead and try that. And we're going to roll against the green target there. Again, she doesn't have focus because the enemy's too close. That's an 11, so that's going to hit. And it's going to deal 18 damage, bringing it down to 40. And on top of that, it heals 18. So we're going to go ahead and heal the tank right back up to 68. All right. So now that provokes the warrior to attack. He's going to go after the brute again, who has the most mana. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and at the start of the turn use the brute's ability D5, which would be pull 2 and deal 4 damage to an enemy. Well, it's not going to pull him, but we're going to deal the 4 damage, bringing him down to 36. And then I'm going to use Hex with the controller. And so I roll a die, and if it's odd, the villain gets distracted and weakened. It is 9, so it is odd. So he gets distracted, meaning he gets -3 to his roll against the enemy, as well as weakened 6. So he's going to do 6 less damage. And then I'm going to use the healer's penitence, and that costs 5 health on the healer to heal 4 damage. And we're going to heal it to the brute and then deal 4 damage to the enemy, bringing it down to 32 health. All right, and now the enemy gets to attack, and all the heroes have the same amount of mana points. And he's closest to the brute, so he's going to attack the brute. And so he's going to roll against the brute. Now he gets -3 to his roll. The brute has 6 defense. And we'll see what happens. That's a 17. It's going to be a hit. And so the brute takes 10 damage, coming down to 44. He's going to heal 6, of course, from the effect. And now his passive ability gets triggered. He moved 2 or less and didn't sidestep. So he's going to run to another hero, the closest to this villain, and deal 5 damage to it. So he's going to run here and deal 5 damage to the controller. Now that, of course, does not cause a reaction attack with the brute because it was not a move action. And so he gets to do that movement and attack without any issue. And so now that he's done there, we are going to attack with the healer, I think. Because we've taken a lot of damage and it's time to heal a little bit. So I'm going to sidestep. So as my movement, I can sidestep, meaning move 1 space. I'm going to move 1 space away from him. Because if I declare an attack, when I'm adjacent to him, it'll cite a reaction attack. If I declare a ranged attack. And so I'll move there. And then I'm going to use Life Tithe. Now, Life Tithe here says I deal 7 damage plus move an ally 3. And then I choose that an ally heal 6 or both heal 4. So we're going to roll against the warrior here. And that's a 4. And that's going to be a miss. So that does 5 residual damage, bringing him down to 33. So now I'm going to use Ziphos Strike with the brute. That is going to do 12 damage if I hit. And this is also, coincidentally, my last silver card of the brute. So after using this, I will get to refresh my silver cards for the brute. All right, let's go ahead and roll. That's 11, so he is going to take 12 damage, bringing him down to 21. The effect does not apply. Normally it would deal bonus damage if there were any tokens applied on me, but we don't have any tokens right now. And on top of that, I'm going to use the tank skill Sprint. And that allows me to pay 2 hit points with the tank, move him 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and charge a skill token. At this point then, I have used all of my skill tokens, or all my skill tokens are charged on my tank. The total charge happens, so I uncharge all 4 skill tokens, and I heal 9 hit points, bringing him back up to full. Actually, while I'm doing that, I might as well use the controller's skill called Pact, which lets me choose 2 allies to charge 1 skill. And so we will choose 1 on the brute and 1 on the healer. But now the controller has 4 full ones, and we flip those back over, and she gives 2 mana to one of the characters, and we're going to give it to the tank, who just recharged. So there we go. And now it's the tank's turn. So the tank is going to use... We really kind of just want to get rid of this guy. He's not dying. But we're going to use Heavy Shield. Heavy Shield is an attack that does 10 damage and grants protected to the tank. So we'll go ahead and use that. And so we are going to attack the warrior. He has defense of 7. That's a 9. And he's going to take 10 damage, bringing him down to 11. On top of that, we are going to use the Brute's Frenzy, which pays 5 hit points, dealing 7 damage to the enemy, bringing him down to 4. And then the Brute's skills are all used up, so he does a total charge, recharging all his skills, dealing 9 damage to an enemy, and killing that final warrior. And there we go. We are done with the 3rd area of the dungeon. And so at this point, the characters get moved to this door here. The statue gets removed. We're able to use armor and weapons now. And these doors get removed, and I will spawn the enemies. All right, and here we go. We are in the final scenario of this quest. We have now spawned 3 enemies, 2 which you have seen before, the warrior and the guardian, or the warrior and the berserker. The berserker's guardian this time. The warrior is a mystic, and then the archer is a guardian. All right. They also have passive abilities. The passive ability here, it moves 2 or less and doesn't sidestep. It deals an extra 7 damage. The warrior here, there's no other villain in one space of the target. Run to another hero and deal 5 damage to it. And then the last one here, the archer. This villain moved 2 or less and didn't sidestep. Deal 5 damage to it and echo 5. So now it's our turn. We get to decide where we want to move. And I think the first thing that I want to do is I want to use the succubus, I think, and attack. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the succubus is not in range of everything here, but she can attack the berserker. So I think that's what we're going to do. And so we're going to use Cursed Bolt, and she's going to get focus. So Cursed Bolt here does 10 damage and causes the target to be cursed. But before we do that, we're going to go ahead and use the ability on the tank, the skill called Reposition. We're going to move this one into the lava, dealing 4 damage. And we're going to move the tank 2 spaces. 1, 2. And then we're going to use Onslaught by the Brute, which allows him to run 5 spaces to a target. And the target takes 5 damage for each space that he ran. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And so it's going to deal 4 damage to the archer. And actually we'll use the healer's last skill, dealing 2 damage to an enemy within range, which will be that one there. 1, 2. And that's going to cause a total charge because she used all her skills at this point, and it'll allow her to heal 9 to one of the characters. So we're going to heal the brute back up to 48. Okay, so now we're finally going to get to use Cursed Bolt. with the controller, and she's rolling against the Berserker, who has 6 defense. That's 18. Even though she's focused and gets +3 to the roll, that doesn't cause a critical hit, because the critical hit is a natural 20. So she does 10 damage to the Berserker, bringing him down to 48. And now he's cursed. So now it's the Berserker's turn. Actually, this would be a good time to, before we get to the Berserker's turn, this would be a good time to show you how to use a weapon. So each character is equipped with a weapon and armor, and this is the basic one here. So the controller has a short bow, which on a hit, you can flip this over, and it deals 5 damage, or 5 extra damage on an attack. So that'll cause the damage on that Berserker to be brought down to 43. So now the Berserker is going to go. He's going to target the closest person in range with the most mana, and that's going to be the tank. The tank has 3, and so he's going to go ahead and attack. 1, 2, 3, 4. His passive does not trigger, and he's going to go ahead and roll. The tank has 8. Remember, he's got cursed, but I'm still going to do Hex with the controller, which causes distracted 3 and weaken 6 if it's an odd number. It's an 8, so that does not work. So I don't think there are any other abilities, any other mana abilities I'm going to try with that. So he's going to go ahead and attack. And so here's his roll. Tank has 8 defense. He does a 17. So he does 17 damage to the tank, bringing the tank down to 53, plus an effect. The villain with the highest hit points gains an empowered 3 token for the next attack. And so that's going to go to the archer. So he's going to have empowered 3 for the next turn. But now the Berserker is exhausted. And so now we are going on to our turn. And I think let's go ahead and use the Brute. And it's high time we used one of his abilities, right? So we're going to use Titanic Power, one of his special abilities. This does move 6, 13 damage plus an effect. The target takes extra damage equal to the attack's natural roll. And we're going to go ahead and target the warrior. So we're going to move 6. Again, this doesn't cause reaction. Okay. And on top of that, we're going to use Harm by the controller, using the last of her mana cubes. It costs 2 hit points. But now he's got vulnerable 6. So he's going to take 6 extra damage, assuming there's a hit. I think that's it for now. No other skills. Let's see what happens. That's an 8, and that breaks through his defense. So I gain that 8 to the damage from the Titanic Power's attack. So he's going to do 21 damage plus 6 from the vulnerability. And that brings it to 27. And that's going to bring him down, all the way down to 29 hit points. Perfect. On top of that, the Brute's effect comes into play. No ally was in one space of the target. And so I gain 1 mana for that. And then I get to move an ally too. All right. So the ally's got to be within 8 spaces of where I'm at. So the only ally that's in 8 spaces is this one here. And so I think we'll just move him there. I think that's what we got to do. Now the warrior is going to be triggered for an attack because he was provoked. And so the warrior is going to go. He's going to target the hero the furthest away within range. So we're going to move, looks like, towards the tank. That's going to cause them to go through the lava. 1, 2, 3, 4. So he's going to take 4 damage from the lava, bringing him down to 25. The tank is going to go ahead and trigger endurance. So before the roll, he's going to get shielded 3. And the brute is going to trigger rage, dealing 3 damage to him, bringing him down to 22. The healer is going to do restoration, which is going to heal 3 to a hero. And we're actually just going to heal her up 3. And then the controller is going to give him cursed. And so now he's cursed. So we're going to roll here. And that's a 3. That's going to be a miss. He will still do residual damage of 8. Actually, we got to roll 1 more just to see if he really misses. Nah. So he does residual damage of 8. There was shielding 3, so it's down 5. So the tank drops 5 hit points down to 48. And one thing I did forget is the warrior would have taken reaction damage of 8 from the brute, bringing him down to 14 now. All right. So now the only characters I have left to use are the healer and the tank, and then the archer. So the archer is going to attack the character with the most mana, and right now that's the brute and the tank, so I have to keep that in mind. So I think we're going to use the healer, and we're going to do Circle of Healing. It's a simple attack here, does 8 damage, and then a heal 3 to 2 heroes if it hits. Okay, we're going to go ahead and just target the berserker here. We have focus because he's not in 3 spaces. And 8 is a hit. So he is going to go ahead and take 8 damage, bringing him down to 35. And then we're going to heal 3 to both the tank and the healer herself. Okay, now we move on to the tank's turn. And we're going to go ahead and attack the archer that's right next to us. And we're going to use Focus Stance here. So Focus Stance is one of his special attacks. And Focus Stance says that I can deal 14 damage to him. And then permanent, I have Toughened 3 once per turn, and I expand my passive trigger's reach to 2. Okay, my passive trigger again is an enemy starts in a turn within 1 space of me and declares an attack. So now it'll be within 2 spaces. So we are going to go ahead and use this ability here. We're going to attack him. On top of that, we are going to use Frenzy from the Brute, which says pay 5 hit points and deal 7 damage. So we're going to pay 5 and deal 7 damage to the... Let's go ahead and deal it to the warrior. Okay? And then we're going to use... Actually, we won't use any other skills at this point, so we're going to go ahead and roll for the attack with the tank. The archer has 6 defense. So we hit it with a 10. That's going to bring him down 14, down to 47. And now I have Toughened 3 permanently, and that means I take -3 damage from attacks. And on top of that, my range on my passive ability is increased. Now permanent only is going to apply until I refresh all my cards. Oh, on top of that, we might as well use our longsword on that hit, dealing an extra 5 damage. Now, when you do a card refresh, after using all your silver cards, you do get to flip back over one of those armors or weapons. So you keep that in mind. You'll want to use those up ahead of time. But when you do that refresh, you lose your permanent status. That's okay. I think I just want it for this one round because now we've provoked the archer to attack. And so the archer is going to choose a target with the most mana. And since we used the mana on the brute's turn, that brings the tank to have the most mana. So he's going to target the tank. Now, since he has range, he's not going to declare a ranged attack against the tank in this space. The rule state is if it puts him in a safer position, i.e. to prevent a reaction attack, he will sidestep. Now that he's sidestepped, his passive ability does not go into play because it says that he had to move 2 or less and didn't sidestep. Well, he sidestepped. So that's going to go into play. And so he's going to declare an attack against me. Okay? Now that he's declared an attack, my passive ability comes into play. Once again, I have +1 range to this, and so this passive ability says that an enemy started its turn within 1 space of you and declares an attack. Well, he did start a turn within 1 space of me, and he just declared an attack, and I'm going to get shielded 4. So I'm going to get -4 -4 to the damage there, and I'm toughened, so it's -7 damage total from this attack. So quite a bit of reduction in damage here. And so I think we're just going to go ahead and do this attack without any other skills. We're going to roll for the archer here. He needs to beat an 8 defense on the tank. That's a 13, so it's a hit. So he is going to deal 11 damage, okay? So 11 minus the 4 is only going to drop down, minus the 7 is only going to drop down 4 health. And now he heals 6 to the villain with the lowest hit points, and flee 3 if he didn't move this turn. Well, he did do a sidestep, so he's not going to flee 3, but he's going to heal the warrior 6. So I'm going to move that up to 13. I did forget he had empowered, so that's 3 more damage on my end. Which is okay. We're still doing good on hit points. All my characters are within 42 to 46 hit points right now. So we're good there. Okay, so now that that's done, we have completed another round. And so we're going to remove all exhaust cubes from the characters and start a new round. So now the things that we got to keep in mind is that we really want to try and take out that warrior before he attacks. And so we're going to go ahead and use the brute. Before we use the brute, actually I think we'll skip skills this round, or this turn. We're just going to move him 1, 2. That does not cite a reaction. And we're going to go ahead and attack the warrior with Savage Weapon, which can deal 13 damage on a hit. And so we're going to roll. That's a 19. He is taking 13 damage, and that is going to kill him. So that warrior is done. Of course, we don't have a provocation at this point. So now we're down to 2 characters. That does award us 1 mana cube per character. And so now what I want to do is I'm looking at the different characters here and seeing what'll happen if I do certain things. So what I want to do is I want to use the healer. So on the healer's turn then, I'm going to use a bunch of skills. So first of all, I am going to use Defy with the Brute. And that is pay 3 hit points, brings him down to 40. Pull 2 and deal 4 damage to an enemy. We're going to target the archer. That's going to deal 4 damage to him. He's already close. And now the brute has used up all his skills, so he's going to turn him over for a total charge, dealing 9 damage. And we're going to go ahead and do that 9 damage to the archer, bringing him down to 29. On top of that, we're going to use Pact with the controller, which two allies get to charge 2 tokens. So we're going to charge 1 on the healer and 1 on the tank. And then we're going to use the tank's skill Sprint, which pays 2 hit points, bringing him down to 42. And then I move 4 and charge 1 skill token. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that's what we're going to do. Again, that doesn't cite a reaction because I did not use it as a move action. So at this point, we've actually used up all the skills on the controller. So she does a total charge, and that's going to give 2 mana tokens to an ally, and we're going to give them to the tank. And then the tank does a total charge, and he's going to heal 9 hit points. So we bring him back up to 51. All this at the start of the healer's turn. We're doing all these things. Okay. Now, you can only use 1 skill per hero per turn. So at this point, we've used all but the healer because we can't use the healer's skills on her turn. So now she's going to go ahead and attack. And so we will use Holy Ray. And that's going to deal 6 damage plus heal 7 to a hero. And the only hero within range is going to be the brute. It looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Actually, both of them are in range, but we'll heal the brute if we hit. So we're rolling against the berserker here. And the berserker has 6 defense. The healer is going to get focus. And we hit. So it does 6 damage, bringing him down to 29. We're going to heal 7 to the brute, bringing him up to 47. And on top of that, we're going to use our short bow on the healer, adding another 5 damage to the end of that attack. And then we've used up the last of our silver cards on the healer. So now we get to flip all those cards back over, just the silver ones, not the gold one that I had used earlier. And I get to flip that bow back over. So we'll be able to use that bow again. Okay, now we've incited the Berserker to attack. So he's going to target the hero that has the most mana, and that's the tank. So at the start of this turn, I think I'm going to use Endurance with the tank, giving him shielded 3. Remembering that he still has toughness 3. And I will use Rage with the Brute, dealing 3 damage to him, bringing him down to 21. So now he's going to move. He has 5 movement. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, causing a reaction attack from the Brute, taking 8 more damage, bringing it down to 13. And he's going to go ahead and attack the tank, who has 8 defense. That's a 3. That's going to be a miss, dealing 8. And so it's going to deal 8 residual damage, but the toughness does not reduce residual damage. Shielded does, so he'll only take 5 damage, bringing him down to 46. Okay, so now we have the controller and the tank available for use. Also, the archer has not gone yet this round, and so I'm thinking of attacking the archer and trying to kill him with Wheel of Fortune. Wheel of Fortune says that before striking, make 2 guesses about the roll, 13 minus or 14 plus, and odd or even. For each correct guess, a different enemy takes 10 damage. Does not apply against the target. So it's going to do 20 damage to the target and then possibly an extra 10 or 20 damage to the other target. So we're going to go ahead and roll. And actually, it looks like we can only hit the Berserker unless we move. So I have to decide if I want the extra roll or not. The focus, I think we'll just go ahead and move. 1, 2, 3. And we're going to attack the archer. So we're also going to use reposition with the tank that causes a villain to move 2. 1, 2. And he'll take 4 damage from that. And I think that's all the abilities, or all the extra skills that we're going to use. So I'm going to predict that I roll less than 13, or 13 or less, and that it's going to be even. So let's see how that goes. It's an 8. It's even. Oh my goodness. So that's going to do 20 damage to the archer and kill off the Berserker. Perfect. All right. That was quite the epic move. On top of that, we're adding 5 damage from the short bow of the controller, bringing it down to 4. And so now the archer is going to choose the hero with the most mana, which is currently the healer, actually. And we'll see what happens here. So the way this works is it's in range. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And he has to sidestep, but he has to sidestep here. And drawing an imaginary line to that corner. Yeah, he's still in range, so he does sidestep. He's going to go ahead and attack, and he's going to roll against the healer. But actually, we'll just go ahead and use Penitence by the healer, paying 5 hit points and dealing 4 damage to the enemy and killing it before it attacks. And there you go. All right. So there you have it. That was the playthrough of this first scenario. After you complete this scenario, there are some story bits to read. It takes you to the town. You learn about the different masteries of the different areas of society, like diplomacy, war, and all those things, which trigger all sorts of extra events and campaign options and stories. You also get to have access to buildings in your city, and you gain allies. All these neat little extra options for the game, but I'll let you discover those for yourself. Feel free to comment in the comments below. Let me know what rules I missed. I'm sure I missed some. I have to tell you that there are a lot of rules with this game. There are a lot of things to keep track of, you know, between like all the extra effects. You know, right here we have the different conditions and stuff here, determining targets, moving, attacking, even all the extra stuff like the passive abilities. I bet you I missed a couple passive abilities on the heroes. There's a lot of things that I hate to say, but are easy to miss. However, the combat is so dynamic. Being able to use those skills on an enemy's turn and that sort of thing is really fun and interesting. It really makes it feel like things are moving at the same time instead of one moves here, then one moves there, and so on. I love the fact that they have the provocation, so if you attack an enemy, he goes next instead of all heroes move, then all enemies move kind of thing. I also like the fact that if you don't attack an enemy, he gets a charged up attack, a critical hit. So there's a lot of really good things. But I will leave you here with this. Again, let me know anything I missed in the comments below. Also, let me know what you think of the game. And please like this video and subscribe to this channel if you like the content you see here. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching Tabletop for One, and have a great night.